Studies have found it is a top priority for parents. Children's mental health. Disturbing stats show a rise in conditions.
And to break the stigma of mental health, we have to talk about it, which is exactly what we did with parents and experts from the Center for Child Counseling. Tracy, you have a son in high school. What's on your mind?
Well, for me, I think you can be a great role model in the home, but then there's that other monster, which is social media. And how I feel like as a young teenager, young man, I just don't want him to be influenced by what he sees on social media, that he feels like that's how life is supposed to be.
We're in a world where social media feels so pervasive. We all put our best selves forward when we're on social media, but I think reminding others that that's one snapshot that has been very purposefully curated is important, and they don't always look like that.
What is driving the mental health crisis right now in our country?
I think social media perpetuates such intense social comparison that we're all striving for this unrealistic expectation and putting all of this really unmanageable pressure on ourselves.
Social media seems to be a very hot topic amongst us right now. Danica, you have a 6-year-old daughter at home. Social media maybe not a huge concern right now, but it will be down the road.
She's moving into first grade, and I'm thinking about changing schools for her because the school that she's been going to, they have recess maybe once a week, maybe once a month. They don't do recess every day, which to me, I think that is negative. I think that they don't have that break, and mentally I think that's very hard. I feel like it's affecting her.
I think play is a crucial aspect for how children learn how to navigate their environment.
That brain is not getting developed when you're isolated, right? Through play, as Mackenzie was saying, our brain develops. We learn how to problem solve. We learn how to be more independent, right? Children learn these things, and to Tracy's point, it's not just 6-year-olds and 5-year-olds, it goes back to 17-year-olds, where they are, through social interactions, they learn the acceptance of responsibility, delay of gratification, right? With social media, all of those are different, actually opposite. So that immediate gratification is right there. There is no way of problem solving because you constantly have something popping up at you, not with you, right?
Even with my own kids, I think the emotional regulation thing is really difficult. I've got a 7-year-old who, kind of has tantrums, and just even as a parent trying to deal with, navigating how to help him in a patient way, but also set boundaries, not just allow him to just do whatever.
So, I think that choices always help, even with 17-year-olds. And to your point, it's very difficult because they're very impulsive. The problem solving is still not fully developed, right? And they want that immediate gratification, right? So allowing them, delaying that gratification, I think helps, like setting some responsibilities before they get to enjoy their time, but also setting giving them options, but not too many, right? So teaching them through experiences and to activities how to problem solve, right? Giving them that independence, right, in an appropriate way to just really do things on their own and to fail and to succeed again, right?
So I'm the parent of a single child, and so I think COVID changed things a lot for single kids. They've become more reserved. They're more mature than other kids who have siblings, at least. How can we help such kids be kids? Because I think my son is way older than what he's supposed to be mentally, so that's not right. I sometimes feel it's not healthy for him.
How can we expect a little one to keep it all together if that's not what they're seeing and we're not co-regulating with them? And I also feel like when we're modeling just being playful, like we were talking about earlier, it's something that is a little bit of a permission for them to be goofy and silly and a kid. Because as an only child, I definitely agree with you. Yeah. I was behaving like a little adult as a child instead of my peers being a little bit more playful. And now recognizing the importance of play, I think it's important as a stress reliever, but also as a bonding moment for you and your child, just to do something fun and silly together and give that kind of permission that they don't have to be keeping it all together at all times.
We sometimes get into that trap of, let me answer this one email. Let me just see what these people are doing on social media. So we get trapped in that. So just making sure, I always say, I'm going to lock my phone for 2 hours when I get home, and so I have that time, because they need to also feel important. If they feel important, they're going to build themselves up, right? The self-esteem will be healthy. But a lot of times when we are looking at the phone and they're trying to engage us, they're like, well, I'm not important, right? This phone is more important than I am.
We as the parents are the example, so we have to be that example at home.
What are the things that we could do to kind of like help the ones that's doing the bullying in school that's causing the trauma to these other kids?
I would say, especially now, it's more dominant because of the effects of just the world and social media, and kids just cannot process that much information in such short time, as much information as they're getting from social media and different sources. One of the things I would say is that for both bullies and those that are bullying, it's important to continue that communication, to find that source of who is the safety for those kids, right? Because as much as they are bullying or being bullied, in many cases they feel isolated. They feel that they're alone, and we know that those healthy outcomes come from positive experiences, right?